Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Pocket Edition. This is episode 43, and today I'm joined by Mark, and we have just returned from our brief little break from YouTube and from recording. And today we thought we'd just ease back into it with some sharing of what we did with our YouTube free time. So Mark, what did you get up to?
I wanted to basically create a backlog of stuff to upload so I can basically be on a bit of a schedule because I'm lazy and I do things very, very quickly. It makes it look more professional, but I like to have a schedule if possible. Never ever works out for me. I was hoping it would work out this time.
I'm exactly the same.
Yeah, I was so hoping it would work this time. I recorded all this footage for all these games. I was so ready. So I had like Spider-Man for my own channel. I had Dragon Quest for GameCast. I had Monster Hunter and stuff like that. And then once everything was ready, went back to look at the footage and everything was corrupted.
I did catch a glimpse of that in Discord a couple of days ago, and I was like, oh, poor soul.
Yeah. And that's just the one time.
You had your time. You had your time, and it's gone.
This is why you never plan in advance. Just spur of the moment. Just let it happen.
So, how were all three of those games anyway?
Dragon Quest XI, fantastic. I thought I was at the end. Turns out I was just in the beginning chapters because they were amping up like the finale. Everything was sort of answered. And then they were like, actually, there's a hell of a lot more. We're going to take away all your party members. We're going to start you back from square one pretty much and just make the story a lot more grand. It's like, okay. It's 30 hours that I just spent already.
Wasted.
Like, it was fun, but I'm going to slow down a bit.
Jeez. That sounds... I don't know if I like that. You didn't like that?
Story-wise, it was fantastic.
Oh, okay. All right.
But story-wise, fantastic. It's just that the pacing felt like it was more final than it actually was.
Okay. All right.
Very awkward. Is my best way to describe it, but still really fun. Then Monster Hunter. I liked Monster Hunter World at the start of the year, and it was a good game, but I missed the hardcore, pretty messy Monster Hunter of the old days, and that's what the Switch version is. It's messy but familiar. Love that game. And most recently, the footage that isn't corrupted that I finished off today, so hopefully a review will be up shortly after this video. Assassin's Creed Odyssey.
Oh, no shit. You got through that really quick.
Yeah, it's... There's so much to do, and I've done a lot, but I'm at that point where I'm like, okay, just do the story.
Yeah, fair enough. So you didn't do much of the side questy stuff. Did you visit your island?
I did visit my island. So for those that don't know, Assassin's Creed Odyssey is ridiculously big. Origins last year was ridiculously big, but Odyssey is about 3 times bigger than that. It's pretty much the size of Greece. Like, there's probably a little bit cut off, but it's the size of ancient Greece. Islands, seas, there's Macedonia at the top and things like that.
Wow.
It's fully explorable. You can basically, like, Breath of the Wild it. You can climb anything you see. If you see it in the distance, you can get to it.
That is cool.
It just takes time. You can even swim there if you want. But I would not recommend it. It takes forever. But I noticed when I was looking at the map, this little insignificant island in the very south of the entire game world. And I was like, that's about where the island where my family comes from, because I'm Greek. And I was like, oh, I wonder if, like, they might just have an island but not name it. And so I zoomed in, it had the name, and I was freaking out a bit. I zoomed in further, and they had broken it up by districts and even named the port the proper name.
What? So this is the amount of detail that's gone into this game.
This is the amount of detail that went into this game. I sailed there not that long ago. I even recorded footage today of going to the island. And this is an island that has practically no natural resources or significance. It's just between 2 vital locations, and it was used during wartime at some point. But has no natural resources, rocky as all hell. There's practically nowhere you can actually, like, dock a ship. And in the game, they recreated that pretty much perfectly. There's this tiny little dock, and just all the rest of it jagged ugly rocks and barren desert in like the middle of the island.
Oh man, that's rough.
And I was like, okay, yeah, it seems pretty fair.
See why my family left.
Yeah, but in terms of like detail, I would have never expected in a million years a developer would have ever bothered to do something like that.
Yeah, well, haven't they been working on this one, or haven't they now come its release? Hadn't they invested more time into Odyssey than what they did the previous installment? Like, didn't they start at similar times development-wise?
Yeah. Odyssey's been in development for a bit longer than Origins, and Origins was in development for like 3 or 4 years or something. And like it shows in both of them. And it's just this insane level of detail. I just was blown away by it. And then I was more blown away once I visited Athens in the game, because that was a very, very cool
jaw-dropping.
Yeah, it's because like I visited places that I visited when I went to Greece. And I was like, ooh, it's that, but it's not broken.
How's the story so far? I mean, very little about these big open world games often grab me, because I view them as massive time holes. And I get a little bit restless with giant games like this. I just find it hard to invest. If the story is like phenomenal, then I'd get on it, and then also enjoy everything else that comes with it, like the grand jaw-dropping scale. But I think the story has to be there for it to actually grab me.
Well, like I know what you mean by restless. Usually I get into open world games and I like do everything I can for the first 20-25 hours, and then I go like, oh, I just want to end it, and then miss the rest of the side stuff, which is happening with Odyssey, where I've done all this stuff and I'm just like, oh, I kind of want to just end the game. But like in terms of story, not the strongest Assassin's Creed, but one of the most interesting.
Okay.
Because you can choose male or female protagonist, and the story's pretty much the same however it goes. But everything is a lot more like a RPG made by BioWare or Obsidian or something like that, where your dialogue choices matter. Because I think there's 9 different endings in the game. And a lot of side quests do have chains that affect little things later on. I made one poor decision at the start of the game, and I am paying for it big time.
Really?
In the open world, like massively paying for it big time. You have no idea. Anyone who's played the game can probably guess what decision that was. But the way they've structured it, because you've played the first Assassin's Creed.
Oh yeah,
before, didn't you?
One and done, man. That was me.
Yeah, I remember that. But the way that they've been doing it for all of these games so far is they sort of like introduce a cult or like an organization and say like, okay, these are the major players, you're going to slowly assassinate them until you reach the top, as the narrative dictates.
Okay.
In Odyssey, they basically say, here's the cult, here's the inner circle, here's the outer circle, here's so-and-so. You need to identify who they are in the open world, track them down, hunt them down, and take them out.
It sounds almost like a Shadow of Mordor type deal.
It takes a lot of inspiration from Mordor for a few special abilities, and there's a mercenary system where they kind of feel like your nemesis, except without personality. It's just that they track you endlessly.
Yeah.
But in terms of the cult system, the menu looks very Shadow of Mordor, but it's just interesting because you're just like, okay, so he is an underling of her, and so and so, and if I kill him, I can get a clue as to who the head honcho is, and slowly figure things out. But you'll find them out in the open world, so they might be at a camp. I found one guy hunting an animal in the forest, and I just took him out.
Oh, savage.
But in terms of freedom of discovery and things like that, I thought it was like a huge step in the right direction.
Right.
Especially since it feels like that is a major part of the narrative, but the actual proper narrative is a more focused personal journey that feels more like a BioWare Obsidian style RPG, and therefore I'm more invested in the character.
Assassin's Creed has kind of turned into a pleasant story in the sense of the franchise started to stagnate, and I feel like they identified that, took some time, and tripled down on reinventing it. And I think it's paying off. It's seemingly paying off.
Yeah, I was ready to give up on the franchise after Unity. I don't know why I played Syndicate. Syndicate was good, but I'd already given up at that point.
Yeah.
Then I played Origins, ready for it to disappoint, and then it just blew me away because they changed everything. And it was the right decision.
Yeah, absolutely.
And now Odyssey, not that it's changed everything again, but it feels more like The Witcher. So Origins felt like a simplified Dark Souls with an open world sort of thing in terms of movement controls and exploration, things like that. Odyssey feels more like The Witcher.
Yeah. And I feel like Odyssey is a representation, or a better representation, of probably what they had in mind from the beginning. But due to time constraints, they probably couldn't fit into... God, I always forget the name of the first one, the Egyptian one. Origins. So that's good. Yeah. I might check it out. Maybe. I'm not making any promises.
The only thing is I find the world very overwhelming because there's just so much.
I think that's what does it to me as well. What almost turns me off.
Yeah, I enjoy Ubisoft open world games, and they are collectathons and things like that, but sometimes you want to explore the entire world, just to get all the synchronization locations or landmarks or whatever you want. That's not going to happen here. Yeah. I'm looking at it and I'm like, it's just not going to happen.
It's too hard. I think my issue with open world games is that I'm a very methodical checklist type person. So when you see a map with all this shit on it, it almost gives me anxiety.
Yeah.
I can't methodically check it all off in a time-sensible fashion. And that's why I tend to never jump on them, because it's too daunting.
Yeah, that's completely fair. And I'm feeling that, and I don't even get that feeling much when I play open world games. So I can't imagine what you'd get through.
Yeah, pretty much. One more game, Mark. You mentioned Spider-Man.
Yeah, Spider-Man. Oh man, what a game! What a fantastic game. It's not the most perfect game in the world, but it does everything it needs to be. It needs to do. Just every single thing it needs to do. It just
checks the Spider-Man box.
Yeah,
straight away.
Checks every Spider-Man box, carves out its own identity. Everything just feels natural, and you get gameplay feels smooth right out of the gate, and it just gets smoother as you get better at it.
Yeah. Nice.
Collectathon wise, very simple, very straightforward, very easy to gather everything and go through it. I spent after I finished the game, I spent probably another 10 hours 100%ing it, just because it was a joy.
You did it really quick.
Yeah.
You 100%ed it really quick, quicker than anybody else in my friend circle.
Yeah, I was just I might as well just keep playing. It's good.
Yeah, you crushed it though, didn't you? You sunk hard time into it super early.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, okay, that's what it felt like.
But that was a good game. I look forward to more things like that.
Yeah, well,
I would like the DLC now, but
I mean, we're seemingly going to get more games from what I've heard on a not necessarily a grand scale like the MCU. They're going to kind of take it as it comes type scenario, but we're seemingly going to be getting more games that are in line with what Sony and I've forgotten the developer Insomniac have done with Spider-Man. So hopefully this has set a bar for fans of the superhero genre in the gaming world.
And it is in one of our lost recordings. Just if they do an MCU MCU game series, Guardians of the Galaxy Mass Effect would be awesome. And after playing God of War, I think that'd work really well with Thor. Just because of the way you retrieve the axe.
Nordic mythology.
That felt so good. That weighty pull whenever you got your axe. But that might segue into our next thing. Sully, what have you been up to in our little sabbatical?
Well, I finally played God of War. Mixed feelings on it, actually. So this is pretty much how I spent the majority of my time away from YouTube, was just chipping away at God of War. I did a few other bits and pieces here and there. Like I said, I've booked that Japan trip that we were talking about, so that'll be cool. Drank a lot of craft beer, actually. A lot of craft beer went hand in hand with God of War, actually. But speaking of God of War, you probably saw my 2-paragraph type punch up of my thoughts regarding God of War. Have you played it?
Yes, I played it, reviewed it last week on my channel.
Oh, I'll have to go watch that then.
Yeah. Look, I thought it was a really, really good game and step in the right direction. I don't think it was, the most amazing thing ever. But I thought it was a fine, well-made game that has potential to grow into something else.
That's pretty much how I felt. I think the game, in my eyes, probably suffered from a little bit of hype train syndrome.
Because you played it much later.
Yeah, 10 out of 10s everywhere. Everybody was giving it 10 out of 10s. All my friends were hyping it up. And don't get me wrong, the game is phenomenally, it is sound. It is a great experience. Having said that, though, the story, in my opinion and in my eyes, never quite climaxed. It always felt like it had another level it could go to, but it never quite reached it. There were some very touching moments, and the story was quite intriguing. But the overall experience felt a little bit drawn out to me, or it felt like I was progressing a little bit too slowly. And there is a little bit of backtracking in the game, so perhaps that contributed towards that. As you know, Mark, the game is constantly pulling you back to the center of the map. And that's when the backtracking occurs, because it wants you to use the realm gateways. So perhaps that added to that kind of padding out feeling. But the story just constantly felt like it was drip feeding towards me, and it never quite climaxed. Having said that, though, the story is good. It is interesting. The dynamic and the evolution of the father-son relationship is also interesting. Combat, though, never quite checked the box for me either.
It wasn't your cup of tea?
It was good. It was solid. It was fun. It had a lot of depth in terms of unlockable skill trees and stuff. There was some combo-esque moves that did eventually layer into the combat system, which was nice. Even though I can't remember half the crap that I unlocked anyway. But my main gripe with the combat in this entry into God of War was I felt like a level of fluidity was missing. That is almost, as I stated in my 2-paragraph punch-up in Discord, that I felt was a hallmark of the originals, which would also tie in with all the combo button bashing type stuff. The original trilogy would see you constantly chaining combos together, combo multipliers. That never quite came to fruition in this God of War. It was kind of like you'd have your one set of combo button bashy move, you'd hold L1, hit square, and then you'd do, I think it was a runic attack, and then you'd have your L trigger moves and your L trigger. What's the other one? Or two and one trigger moves, and that was about it. Nothing really felt like it chained or comboed together. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the combat system. It's still good. I'm just saying it doesn't have that same level of fluidity that I thought the original trilogy had.
Yeah, I'm probably a bit more on the opposite side, where I preferred this combat over the original.
Yeah.
Mainly because I liked the way that the combat, especially it was most evident in the camera for the entire game.
Yeah.
The combat felt a lot more personal.
Yeah.
Whereas the original God of War, you were fighting 10, 20 enemies at a time. This God of War is 2 to 3 to 5 maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes the fights feel more sort of immediate and up close and personal. I also partway through the game, I do agree that some of the combat didn't flow that well until around halfway through the game when I started remembering the combos.
Yeah, because it forced you to, because you needed them.
and I started noticing that some of the moves open up into any of the other moves you have, so you can create these sort of completely custom combos. And I really appreciated that. sort of freedom, whereas in the original God of War it was basically square, square, triangle.
Yep.
Got you through the whole thing because that was a good attack.
Yep. And I think my gripe with God of War isn't so much a gripe with this God of War. I think it's just my love for the originals that's influencing my opinion on what's happening in this latest entry. And I agree with you, like, this form of combat totally makes sense for the camera
for the type
nature.
of game they've made.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, it totally makes sense. But, like, I almost got that kind of sense of fluidity when you first get his throw knives back, or whatever they're called, his original swords from the original trilogy.
Spoilers.
Mad spoilers. Soz, not soz.
That entire scene was really good, by the way.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That's freaking amazing.
Absolutely. I mean, like, I've droned on about it enough. Overall, it's a fantastic game, and I think it's a very, very solid and interesting beginning point for hopefully a whole set of future God of War games. Yeah. And the crossing of mythology was like, it's like some nerdy popcorn type stuff. Like, it's really interesting how Kratos is interacting against spoilers. I'm gonna have to put a spoiler warning in the title, Mark.
Yeah, that's fine. But just on that point, like saying, like, Kratos interacting with different mythologies and things like that. I just like the concept of, like, the way that God of War's always presented itself. It has presented itself very seriously, in very stupid situations.
Yeah.
Of, like, one guy going against the Greek gods and eventually climbing Mount Olympus and all that. But now in God of War 4, it's no, other mythologies exist and are physically close to each other. You can literally walk or boat to one. It's just that we don't really talk to each other.
Yeah, right. There's a whole gate world or network of system that connects it all.
Yeah, so, like, effectively Kratos destroyed Greek mythology.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know what? I'm going to stroll over here. See what happens.
Yeah, it's super interesting though, and I love when they reference the previous God of War stuff in this entry, because it does give you that real nostalgia kick when he's, like, reminiscing almost shamefully about his past, and he's trying to hide it all from his son, but then all kind of starts trickling to the surface, and Atreyu actually does eventually find out about it all. But it's really interesting looking at it from, one, he's kind of now starting to influence the Nordic mythology in a way that perhaps, he doesn't want to even partake in, but he's being forced to, while you're also looking at his past at the same time, which is really interesting. I actually found that really interesting and enjoyable. Perhaps it's the nostalgia goggles. I don't know.
Like, whatever they've done, I think it's the right decision for the franchise. But I think one of the biggest issues with it, and I think you've touched on it a bit without necessarily saying it, is that the game unfortunately feels like it's building for a new franchise.
Oh, absolutely.
Which is why you said, like, it didn't really end on a bang, or
it never
something final.
Quite climaxed.
It ended on a, hey, stuff's gonna happen.
Yeah. Well, obviously, without spoiling anything, there's going to be repercussions regarding what transpired in this game. You'd imagine huge repercussions. But having said that, I think why I feel like the story never climaxed is probably because I was expecting the interactions that Kratos was having in this setting and mythology were going to transpire in this game. But this game isn't about that. This game is about a personal story regarding their family. And I think on that level, we got that climax.
Yeah, like to be fair, the original goal was very simple.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, we got to go up there. It's like, cool.
Yep, and they stuck to that. And some interesting shit went down and happened along the way. So, yeah, I mean, when all is said and done, I can't remember what I rated it, Mark. I think it was it wasn't a must buy. What's our one below must buy? I should know our own review system.
Worth a buy.
Worth a buy. It is worth a buy, or I think I gave it an 8 out of 10. It's a very solid experience. If you're like me and you're on the fence and you just never got around to investing time into it, I highly recommend you do, because I probably made it sound like it's not like this amazing experience. It is. It's great. It thoroughly grabbed me, and the first maybe I think probably 5 to 10 hours were probably felt like a little bit of work getting into it, but it does grab you, and it's a very intriguing story. So highly recommend.
Like we're just picking at it just for the sake of picking at it. Really, just to say that like it's not the be all and end all sort of game that it sounded like when it first hit, because people weren't really ready for it to be what it was. But like, fantastic game, and it'll probably be nominated for Game of the Year and stuff like that. But that's not to like discount what Spider-Man's done or what Red Dead Redemption 2 will probably do.
Oh, holy shit, dude! Just that one's got it in the bag.
it probably does.
You can't invest that much time into a game.
Yeah, if it's anything like the previous Red Dead Redemption, it's absolutely gonna nail it.
And if it's learnt anything from the last Call of Duty entry, it's gonna crush it. GG. See you guys next year. Yeah, that was pretty much it, Mark. Like, literally all I played was God of War. We took like what? I think we took 3 weeks off. So I wrapped that up last week. I'm about to actually get on the Call of Duty Black Ops 4 bandwagon, because I'm actually quite, I wouldn't say heavily into, but I was quite into PUBG, and I want to get it for the Blackout gameplay. Game mode.
I like, even though I'm not the biggest Call of Duty fan, and by saying that I've played one, I have heard good things about the Battle Royale style mode.
Well,
I've heard it just works.
That's where all of their campaign time went. Guarantee it. Having watched gameplay of it and comparing it to PUBG, it's a far more polished version of PUBG that looks like it just works.
Yeah, well, in PUBG's defense, it was a mod originally.
Oh, yeah. But there's so many niggling issues with that game. Like, as somebody who constantly dabbles in it, like netcode issues that they're not getting right. This could be the first big pedigree developer to jump on the Battle Royale game mode and have actually really truly nailed it for the mainstream across all systems without any issues. And you could say that about Fortnite, sure, but Fortnite's, I think, kind of was one of the original big dogs that came along with basically almost the same time as PUBG. So I think Call of Duty, this is the first big Battle Royale game mode to come along, I think. And then obviously we've got Battlefield.
It's the first, like, AAA.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. This is the first one, and it's pretty good, like, seemingly, from what I've heard and what I've seen so far. So I'm going to try to pick that up this week. I was going to actually get it on release, but it's sold out. It's sold out here. I couldn't get a physical copy at EB Games, JB Hi-Fi, Big W Target, anywhere. Could not get a physical copy on any system. So I don't know if that's a reflection on really good sales, or perhaps just they underestimated the demand for this. Perhaps it is the new game mode that's pushing extra sales, because to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if it was, because I wouldn't have bought this one if it didn't have the Blackout game mode. So that's interesting. And as you know, Mark, like, when was the last time you had to pre-order a game to secure it?
A while ago, actually.
Yeah, exactly.
PS2 era.
I reckon the last game I pre-ordered was Halo 3. And that was just to make sure I got my game copy day one. So I'm going to try and pick it up again later this week.
I remember Smash Brothers Brawl on Wii. That one. That was the last time I had to do it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Like, I still pre-order, but that was the last time I remember it was sold out for ages.
Yeah, absolutely. Some of those big ones do. So kind of surprising. I'm sure we're going to get sales figures on that relatively soon, opening week sales. So it'd be interesting to see what they reflect.
Because
how much...
that sort of sale thing reminds me of GTA 5 when it launched, because that was like, launch day, people can find it, not a lot, and then next day sold out everywhere.
Yeah, so maybe I don't think this is going to happen, but maybe Red Dead's like what? Red Dead's this week. Is it this week?
It's next week.
Next week?
Yeah.
Oh, did it get pushed? Okay. For some reason I thought it was the 18th. Yep, so or if you live in Australia, perhaps pre-order that.
I'm pretty sure it's next week. I'm going to Google it.
Yeah. So if you're hanging out for that one, maybe if you do live in Australia, pre-order that one. Because if it's anything like Call of Duty and they underestimate demand again, and you're intending on buying it regardless, pre-order it.
26th of October.
Okay, so it is next week.
Had me going there.
Yeah, got excited. You're like, holy crap!
I don't have the hard drive space. I'm playing Assassin's Creed.
Well, apparently
I need to sacrifice titles to play.
Apparently, it's like 105 day one install gigabyte extra download or something like that.
Yeah, on PS4 it's 105. On Xbox it's like 88.
Damn. And Nintendo Switch? Oh, lol.
We'll see if they do that cloud save thing in Japan.
They're gonna have to, man. They're gonna have to. What was interesting, though, what happened while we were away, and I know we're kind of droning on now, but that's kind of the nature of this episode.
Yeah.
The Nintendo Switch hardware revision rumors, seemingly more than revisions. New hardware.
Yes. I think it'll be interesting. Because it sounds like the traditional Nintendo thing of it'll be like they won't call it the new Switch because that's dumb, but then again it is Nintendo.
They did that to the 3DS.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying like it is Nintendo. They did it for Mario Brothers. They did it for the 3DS.
Yeah, I think they're gonna do it, man. Should we make a bet now?
Well, I think it'll either be an equivalent. I don't think they'll name it that.
The equivalent Switch.
The Switch was a good name. Switch was a good name.
Switch. They'll keep the branding. They're gonna keep the branding. The Switch branding. That's a given.
But I don't necessarily think this will be a new Switch so much as it'll be a Switch Lite.
You think it's going to be called a Switch Lite?
No, I mean like in terms of like how the 3DS became 3DS Lite or XL. How it'll improve the hardware but not push it to require new games specifically for it.
Oh, so you think?
Yeah. So I think it'll improve everything. So it might be better resolution and frame rate generally for handheld. Better size of screen, so it might be a bit bigger.
But
you don't battery life.
You don't think we'll see exclusive games for the new system?
I don't think we'll see it yet.
But we see that. Don't we already see that with the 3DS new?
Yeah, but they did that for 2 games.
Oh, okay.
It's only got like 2 games exclusive to the new 3DS.
So you think it'll be more scalable like it is for the Xbox and PlayStation?
Yeah, I think it'll be an improved version, but no necessarily like exclusive stuff for it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think they're going to alienate the original Switch owners just yet.
Yeah, not yet. I think if they're going to do like a new version, it might be 3 years down the line or something like that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because look at the 3DS and the DS. The 3DS has had 4 different iterations.
Too many.
Yeah, but all of them were spaced out relatively well.
Yeah.
And so I'd say the Switch would do the same. Like the very next Switch isn't going to be the one that overwrites the previous one. It's going to be the one that improves it.
What's your hope for this Switch then? Just to fix all the little gripes that we have with this one? Because for me, it's like an upgrade from a 720p screen to a 1080p screen. A slight increase in battery. Maybe going from, 15 to 30 FPS on Doom to a solid locked-in 30. Or maybe even between 30 and 60 in handheld mode. Is that kind of what you're hoping for?
Yeah, I think above all else, it needs battery.
Oh, yeah.
But I think definitely locked-in frames would be perfect.
Mm-hmm. What about...
For a lot of games, like especially in handheld mode for games, I don't understand why the frame rate gets worse. It's that the console is technically using less energy, not projecting itself.
Well, do you think in terms... this has probably been answered by websites like Digital Foundry and stuff. But do you think the reason why you get maybe slightly less performance in handheld mode, in terms of resolution and frame rate and all that, is because it is running off a low power type environment, whereas when it's docked, it's running off outlet power?
Yeah, I feel like it has to do with it's running off its battery instead of an outlet.
Yeah.
I'm sure, like you said, I'm sure someone's done it to prove that, but it's probably a thing with the outlet.
Yeah.
Just like when you plug in your phone or laptop or something to an outlet, it gets brighter than it usually is because it's charging off the source.
Yeah, when you plug it in at the end of the day and you're on 5% and it's in dim mode and then it lights up to 100% and you literally feel like you've been solar flared.
Yeah, it's most likely the same principle. It's just that it looks different because we're not used to a console like this.
Yeah. I think the number one thing on the list of improvements that I hope they'll roll in, but I guarantee they fucking won't, is hard drive space. Or memory.
Yeah. Knowing Nintendo, not a chance.
No, they will increase the resolution, they'll fix battery, but they'll still send us the same shitty amount of memory.
Yeah, like, not a chance.
Like, oh man, that's so frustrating though, isn't it? Like, I understand you can put in SSDs,
micro
SD cards. Yeah. But that's kind of, it's almost besides the point. Like, you should get like a given amount of space just to get you started, and 16 gig is not enough.
See, I've always been in the mindset of I don't mind if it's expandable memory, but the console better effing come with the expandable memory already in it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Because I remember the original PSP had no internal storage at all, and you had to buy its specific memory sticks separately, and no one tells you that when you buy it. And so I remember I just had the freaking console in sleep mode for ages until I got an actual memory stick.
Speaking of things that are absent that you'd expect to be included, now just real quickly before we touch on that though, like 16 gigabytes, like I think set memory, and then maybe just toss in a 16 gigabyte micro SD as well. So 32 gigabytes to get you started, I think would be like an acceptable, okay starting point for the Switch.
I think it all depends on the size of the games involved.
Yeah, that's true.
Like Red Dead Redemption's a perfect example. The PS4 basic is 500 gigs. This game takes up a fifth of your console.
Yeah. So, and not to mention the cart sizes as well. Like, the biggest friend of the Switch at the moment, I think, is the potential for how much storage it can have rolled into it if you invest in a micro SD card. And going digital for this system, like, totally makes sense. Like, they should be pushing like digital, because the cart hardware, it's just not going to be able to handle in that format or form factor that the Switch is locking it into. Is not going to be very expandable, from my understanding and knowledge. Like, you're not going to be able to fit like 300 gigabyte fucking games onto these carts, like, at all. So the storage needs to be there. So the system can eventually transition to digital. But they kind of handicap you both ways unless you want to spend money. But just to quickly touch on things that should be rolled into systems. I remember my 3DS didn't come with a charger, which is ridiculous.
Yeah, the new 3DS didn't. They expected you to already have one.
And I've also seen, apparently, I haven't done much reading on this, but I think it's the PS1 Mini that was announced, I think, right after we decided to go on break.
Yeah.
I don't think that comes with a power supply either.
Okay. It's the exact same thing with the NES and SNES. It's a USB power source, but if you want the AC adapter, you have to pay extra. Right,
so it's like a micro USB, like a phone charger, I'm assuming, will power this thing?
No, it's regular USB 2 or 3, I think. So not USB-C, which is the...
so just USB 3?
Yeah, just a regular. So a laptop will technically be able to power it. Or,
so what, you meant to plug this USB into a spare port on your TV or something?
Yep. Yeah, and that's where the awkwardness comes, because those minis never have good never have good cord length.
So many easy fixes.
But that's right. The issue with this PlayStation Mini is the price and what's included with it, because you're not getting your AC adapter in Australia. It's $150 for the console. Yeah. And we only know 6 of the game. Yeah,
that's another thing. And it's not coming out December 6th, is it?
Yeah, it's coming out pretty soon, really.
Yeah, like a month and a bit.
Yeah, and that's why it hasn't pre-sold out, because we don't know what's on it.
Why wouldn't you just announce all the games from the get-go?
Yeah, that's what Nintendo do, and that's why their things sell out all the time. Because it's here's the NES with all the good games, and here's the SNES with all the good games. We wanted to put more, but we couldn't.
Yeah, couldn't.
Well, unless they did expandable memory, which they should have done.
Yeah,
which interesting. Classic Nintendo. We were just talking about this.
Yeah. The interesting thing with the PS1 Mini is, why do you think they've not announced the games? Do you think they're going to use it as some kind of like hype campaign to keep from going like we've announced it, but then they have other things to announce in the lead up? Or
it's either a hype campaign or they're worried about the rest of the games they're putting on it.
Like licensing wise, maybe?
I'd say it's more that they don't have faith that their other games can carry it.
Because the PS1, in my opinion, is one of the most awkward systems in terms of transitioning from 2D to 3D. Like, it did not transition to 3D gloriously at all.
No, it
the
didn't.
Nintendo 64, on the other hand, crushed it.
Yeah.
And that's due to the aesthetics and the craftsmanship that went into those 3D worlds that Nintendo alone is incredible at building, at least during that era and generation anyway. Do you think they're still tossing up between how well some of these games are holding up, whether they were good or not back in the day or not? Like,
probably. Look at it. It's not the PS1 Mini. It's the PSX Mini. Realistically, because it doesn't have joysticks. Which
So,
also means
3D
that
environments.
which also means that a whole chunk of later games aren't going to make it.
Yeah,
Aren't
just
even-
straight
aren't even
away.
they're not even a possibility.
Yep.
And that means like I said, they're either waiting to hype something up or they blew their load early and are worried about the rest. They announced FF7 as one of those 6 games. FF7 being the game that it is and moving people to whatever the hype train is for the remake currently. Clearly FF7 is the big hitter. Like Tekken's cool and things like that, but like FF7's the key one there. But why did you announce that then, or why didn't you announce the rest? Are you not confident in the rest? Potentially we could have Metal Gear Solid 1, because that didn't need joysticks, and that came out for the PSX. But that's pretty much the only other like massive hitter on the PlayStation that didn't use joysticks, as far as I remember.
Yeah.
That like everyone was like, oh, you've got to play like Castlevania Symphony of the Night, Metal Gear Solid, and FF7. That was pretty much like the thing.
I also wonder about the licensing issues as well, because I've heard Phil Spencer comment on this like hundreds of times before regarding backwards compatibility for original Xbox games in terms of getting them like almost legally on the Xbox One X. And I think it's not so much if you have the disc and putting it in, but it's the fact that you can have the disc and then they distribute you the digital version with Xbox enhancements. It's almost like they're redistributing it.
And therefore they need to renew that license.
Yeah,
or whatever.
and on Game Pass as well. So in terms of, rolling these games into a subscription service, there's a lot of licensing issues behind it. So I wonder if a lot of these games are held up that they don't want to announce because they're still trying to sort out some of the nitty-gritty of the licensing issues. Like some of the licenses have lapsed, and because they're redistributing it again, maybe that's the issue. I don't know.
Well, it's like, I know, like for FF7, I know Square Enix are very free in letting that license out.
Oh yeah.
Whereas Konami, I'm sure, would be very strict about Metal Gear.
Go back to your pachinko machines, assholes.
Yeah. But hey, at least Castlevania is getting digital at the end of this month.
Yeah, man.
I want to play Symphony again.
Yeah.
But like when you saw the NES Mini and SNES Mini, it's like they're all Nintendo games, pretty much.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it.
And it's like, like Nintendo, they can do it because it's them. Like Mega Man and stuff like that, that was fine. It's Capcom. Capcom are pretty free about their stuff. But the ones that you wanted to play are usually first party. And that's the issue with the PlayStation Mini.
Yeah, that's true. Did you see the sorry, Mark, go on.
No, I was going to say, and if they ever did an Xbox Mini somehow,
yeah,
they'd run into that exact same problem.
Yeah, you see, it's funny because I remember Microsoft had a bit of a jab at Sony saying, I can't remember what the actual, can't quote it, but it was something along the lines of, almost like, why worry about an Xbox Mini when you can already get them all backwards compatible on the machine you already own? Like, it's so true because they're like beasts in terms of their back catalog. So, I mean, I I don't think Microsoft's going to be rushing out to do a mini anytime soon. Although I think it would be absolutely fucking hilarious if we did get a mini original Xbox, because that thing was a beast.
Yeah, I'd like them to call it the Mini, and it's just like the size of a PS2.
Yeah, that's what I was saying in the Discord when I first saw the tweet. Could you imagine that? Like, here's the Mini, but it's just a normal console size.
And the controller is slightly bigger, just because.
Just because it would still be cool though if they took the original Xbox Duke controller but shrunk it down to just a normal size.
That controller.
Oh man. Anyway, I guess we should wrap it up because we've been. Well, there you go. There's our catch up for the last 3 weeks that we've been absent. I guess we kind of touched on some of the happenings of the last 3 weeks that transpired in the video game industry and also gave you what we've been playing. But do feel free to leave your thoughts down below. I know we've covered a lot, but feel free to cherry pick and comment on what we've covered in this episode. As always, guys, if you're listening to us on any of the podcast services, being iTunes or SoundCloud, be sure to come on over and check out our YouTube channel where you'll find a variety of other content in the form of news, reviews, and other bits and pieces. If you wish to find any of Mark's reviews, I believe they'll be going up on his channel and the GameCast channel. Don't forget to click the little bell notification on our YouTube channel or on your smart device, as YouTube is notorious for failing to send out notifications when new content goes up and live. But until next time, guys, have a good one.